You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we know our T20 World Cup finalists. India will take on South Africa as the pair of them dished out some almighty thrashings to England and Afghanistan respectively. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Max Rowe-Brown to go over the two semi-finals and preview the big one coming up in just over 24 hours time. How are you doing, Max?
Yeah, very good. Nice and refreshed on this lovely Friday morning in the UK, and I've forgotten all about last night, so it's fine.
Okay, what happened yesterday?
From an emotional perspective, obviously, I've remembered what happened in the cricket because we're about to talk about it. But
yeah, were you emotional? Did you cry?
No, not really. Oh,
that's a shame.
It's fairly sanguine about the whole thing. Largely expected.
The people would have liked it if you cried.
I know. Cry more.
Yeah, well, they'd like it if you cried live on air. No one's ever done that yet.
And, hay fever's bad at the moment. The pollen count's quite high, so there's always a chance. There may be some tears.
There is. If you're over on YouTube, make sure you do click like and subscribe. Our subscriber numbers have been growing slowly through the World Cup, and I think we'll have a good audience in today for some reason. So let's try and make the most of that. Do click like, do click subscribe. We do lots of content all the time. And we're sponsored by Manscaped. Manscaped.com is the destination that you two need to go to. You two? There's more than two people listening, I'm sure. I hope.
Unless you're in the band. Is Bono listening?
What? Oh, yeah, maybe Bono listens. Is he a cricket fan?
Could be.
Yeah.
Seems like the type.
Bono, if you need to shave your testicles, head over to manscaped.com. Use the code CricketPod for 20% off plus free shipping. That code again is CricketPod. You get 20% off plus free shipping, and you need to go to manscaped.com. Max, we'll start with the bigger game, probably. India v England. And he's in Australia there. Take it away.
Yes. Okay. So India versus England for a place in the final of the T20 World Cup. A repeat of the last T20 World Cup semi-final in 2021, was it? So long ago now. And we all remember what happened then, don't we? India put up 168 batting first and England chased it down on 1 by 10 wickets. Would there be a repeat? No, there would not. It was a very different kettle of fish in this occasion, in a rainy Guyana where we were talking about all sorts of things in terms of weather, reserve days that weren't there, extra 250 minutes of play and all of the rest of it, slow turning wickets. And, we actually got some cricket. So that's the first good thing to note. The weather was fine. It rained a bit, but ultimately a full game. So tick, first thing out the way. England won the toss, put India in. Rohit Sharma said that he would have batted. So both teams were happy, apparently. And Rohit Sharma then set about showing why he said he would have batted. He was excellent for his 57, getting India off to a roaring start alongside Suryakumar Yadav before the rain came and interrupted the India innings just as it was getting into its flow after 8 overs or so. It got us talking about whether there might be some DLS shenanigans in the, for the memory of Mr. Duckworth himself that might lend England an advantage. But with all the reserve time that we had in the game, that never featured. And India were 110 for 2 at one stage, which was way ahead, I think, in everyone's minds, where par was at that point. England did well. They fought back. Chris Jordan took 3 wickets, but a little flurry at the end of runs got India up to 170, which looked a really tall task for England. And, well, it proved to be very, very tall in the end. Once Akshar Patel managed to get Jos Buttler with his first ball at him, reverse sweeping, that kind of negated most hope for England fans, I think. And then it was kind of like watching England playing India's spinners in India in the 4th or 5th test of the series, because it was kind of a lot of wild, blind slapping at the ball or getting caught on the crease and not really knowing where to go. And it all petered out kind of ignominiously in the end. A couple of nonsense runouts thrown into the mix, and ultimately a complete domination from India over this England side, who will be going home, licking their wounds and probably having to have a long, hard look in the mirror, while India march onto the final looking every bit like champions elect, with just one small hurdle to overcome in the shape of an unbeaten team.
I think that champions elect is a bit far. If you've got another
Well,
team,
I'm just going by the betting market.
I understand that, but like, I think that diminishes South Africa, and we'll get to them. I think South Africa I think they're basically the two best teams.
It was a little tongue in cheek
in this competition are in the final, and they're going to play a game, and we'll see who wins. I don't think this is ODI World Cup. I'm still kind of shocked that he didn't win that. Like, I still can't really figure out like what actually happened there. This is a T20. They're going to play another really good T20 side. So something could happen. And
absolutely.
And I think it's a bit premature to be buying fireworks at this point. Like, you know, it's like England v Slovakia at the weekend in football.
But also,
I'm more confident of England.
You know that they've been stockpiled, though, don't you? All of those fireworks have already been bought. I'm not buying them, but they've been bought. That's the point.
Maybe if you do want to fire off some fireworks, you need to get in, because it's like this is a bit of a tangent that's going away from the cricket. But remember, in COVID, everyone was buying toilet roll for no reason. Yeah. And then that meant that people who were like, I know that we don't need to stockpile toilet roll, then had to buy some toilet roll because they knew there'd be no toilet. And it created this cascade effect. So maybe if you do want to set off some fireworks on Sunday, if India win, go and buy the fireworks now, because it's going to be a run on fireworks at some point between now and Sunday. And as you say, Max, India are the favourites. But
that is quite bizarrely, Jack, a very good analogy for the point I was trying to make.
They played well. Let's talk about this game, though. We will do a proper final preview and give our thoughts on that. I think we both do think India will win, but there's probably degrees to how significantly or how big that advantage is. Max, I thought before the game that India are obviously the favourites. I think we both said that on the last pod. Yeah. I think there were some things England had to stop happening. And I think one of the things they had to stop happening was any Indian pair getting 75 runs in a partnership. Because I thought as soon as that happened, that meant the score would go above the kind of 140 par mark. Like, it would guarantee that India were going to have some bonus runs. So after I know that I think the partnership was actually 73. So maybe I'm proving myself wrong here, but I feel like this is a moral victory. I'm going to claim the moral victory. I think this game, Max, was won by Rohit Sharma and Surya Kumar Yadav in the first innings, and that by the time they got Rohit Sharma out, by the time England got Rohit Sharma out, the game had gone. Discuss.
Yeah, I completely agree, unfortunately, for the purposes of interesting discussion and discourse. Akshar Patel got player of the match, and that's quite interesting, because there's a massive bias when it comes to player of the match awards in terms to the batting unit usually, and in this case, I actually think the batting unit probably should have got it. I suppose it would have been a tough one between Sharma and Rohit Sharma and Sky, but I think Rohit Sharma probably deserved it slightly more, because just the way the pitch played, you could see how difficult it was out there, and it was exactly the kind of pitch and batting surface where you think the two key guys in this game for India are Rohit Sharma and Surya Kumar Yadav, because Rohit Sharma has shown, just with his pedigree across all formats, that he is able to score runs at a good rate on all sorts of different kinds of surfaces. The 91 he scored against Australia on a bouncy, faster wicket, the 57 here, and there's just so many times where he's come up with incredibly important runs when everyone else has struggled, basically. And then you've got Sky, who's just a freak, basically. Like, he's got a skill set that no one else in the world really has. He can score all over the ground, and that means that he can score runs in weird ways on surfaces like this that a lot of other players can't do. And those two proved that point. They were so important. They were integral to the India innings, and they managed to get them to a score, like you said, that was quite comfortably above par. So I would actually have said that in terms of the difference makers, those two were probably deserving of praise as much or more so than Akshar, who obviously bowled brilliantly. But it was kind of he was bowling on a surface that was almost perfectly suited to that kind of bowling. Dart it in at the stumps, and you are a nightmare to face. Whereas the other two were trying to overcome something that made their task more difficult and managed to do that. That's where I see what happened yesterday.
also, Akshar got to bowl with the benefit of those two having created a situation where England needed to score eight
had
and
to
a
go
half and
after
over.
him. Yeah,
Like, which was probably a run and a half above what par would have been.
yeah.
And I think it is quite hard to look past India getting 171 and that partnership in particular as the main point that decided this in India's favour in India's favour, because everything that happened after that is obviously as a result of
under the scope of what just happened. And we were talking at a halfway stage, weren't we? What was the betting markets had it 80-20 to India at the halfway stage? Like that shows
not quite that far. I think it was 76-24,
right.
but like it was a real long shot.
It had moved the dial quite a lot. So you can see the importance of that innings and what happened next. And it's a bit like, I suppose, that the way Bangladesh fell in a heap against Afghanistan the other day, because they had to try and chase down that 115 or whatever it was in 12 overs. It meant that their batting effort looked kind of pathetic. And that's sort of what happened to England's top order. They had to chase 8.5 and over, which meant they had to go for it in conditions that they're probably not suited to doing that. And it meant that they lost early wickets and it all went a bit horribly wrong. But that's because of the pressure that those two players in Sky and Rohit Sharma put on. So
basically
that's where we are.
And I think like there'll be England fans who are like hoping for an inquisition. I'll say this: I don't actually think England bowled that badly. After the power play, I looked up Rohit Sharma's control percentage. It was 47%. So he'd faced, I think, 18 balls. 10 of them even, he didn't hit, or he didn't hit where he intended to hit them. Now, you would typically expect a player to have been out 1.5 times for that number of false shots. So you could make a fair argument, I think, if you were an England bowler, that you'd done your job with respect to getting Rohit Sharma out, and it just wasn't your day, and that happens in cricket. Like you do get occasions where a player outperforms the expected dismissal rate. That probably happened to Rohit Sharma early in his innings. And he cashed in.
First ball, he nearly nicked. The first boundary, first boundary hit was a leading edge over sort of just over short third man for 4. And if but also I think some of those full shots were kind of calculated risks as well. Some of them were lofted shots over the infield that went up and plugged, but they were kind of safe. So I think there's a little bit of a balance in reading into that full shot stuff.
I don't know. I think if you try and hit the ball for 4 or 6 and it goes up in the air and not for 4 or 6, then you didn't have control over the ball, did you?
No, but you're thinking about where the fielders are and the likelihood of getting out in that situation. I think
that's like, look, I understand what you're saying, but the maths isn't in your favour on this argument. Like a false shot is just a false shot, and about
it is. But if you're playing, I mean, this isn't the case, right? Because there were fielders around. But if you're playing a false shot into an area where there are literally no fielders, the maths suggests that's as dangerous as a false shot where you've edged it through the slips for 4, right? That's just not all false shots are created equal, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. But the general argument holds, right? 47% control is low, and you're quite lucky not to have at least given away a chance in that situation. But like you said, it's cricket. That is cricket.
I don't think there was a false shot issue for Surya Kumar Yadav. I think if I'm loath to say that England bowled badly to him because it's quite difficult to bowl well to him, and actually, maybe it wasn't as bad as it could have been from an England point of view. But he did play some terrific shots. He broke out, Max, on the world's slowest pitch, the open face cover drive 6, which is a real sight to behold. I think that was off Sam Curran. We got good Sky today, didn't we?
We did, and I'm glad to a degree, because it's just nice to watch, isn't it? When Sky's pulling out those shots, it's a wow factor.
It is a wow factor, yeah. So India batted well. With the England innings, obviously Buttler comes out and for about 3 overs makes it seem like there'll be a bit of a contest, and I think chasing 170 on this pitch, basically the way that England were going to win, if they were going to win, was to be 50 for none at the end of the power play, and then to grind through the wickets as they attacked the spinners and probably got out, but had a chance to at least make it close.
They probably needed it down at about 7 and over from a reasonably early stage, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's more or less it. They needed, or at least needed the first number of the required run rate to be a 7 and not an 8 or a 9.
Yeah.
And Butler, he goes. I saw some people kind of attacking Butler for playing that shot first ball of Akshar Patel, and I disagree with that. I think Butler's seen plenty of Akshar Patel over the years. Like, it's very much a known quantity.
Plenty of reverse sweeps in the power play.
And he's played plenty of reverse sweeps, and the dynamic, of the game, which dictated that England had to get to 50 minimum at the end of the power play, meant that he couldn't really not do something like that. He gets out. That's the advantage of the Rohit runs from earlier in the game. They force that, and it's game over.
It's a classic example of standard cricket commentary hypocrisy as well, because how many times do you see someone hit a 4 or a 6 off the first ball off a bowler's over, and they go, well, that's great cricket, you get a boundary off the first ball, and then the pressure's off for the rest of the over and everything else is a bonus. And then, he's out of the first ball trying to hit a boundary, what's he thinking? Just tap it around. Like, it's one or the other, isn't it? You can't have both.
The other thing that struck me The other thing that struck me about this, if we take Butler out of this for a moment, I think he did fine. He was a bit unlucky. I mean, like he had the opposite of Rohit, basically. He played one false shot, hit it straight up in the air, and he was out. England do have an astonishing number of good cricketers who are extremely unreliable. Moeen Ali, he comes in at 3, and it was just like, what's the expected outcome there? Like, you don't want to be relying on Moeen Ali coming in at number 3 in your T20 World Cup final. Then it's Bairstow, he gets bowled by Akshar Patel. Like, that was obviously going to happen.
Johnny Bairstow's quite reliable at the moment.
Yeah, he is. But then, like,
in the sense that he'll reliably fail.
6 weeks ago, he hit 100 in the record run chase in T20 cricket. Like, the guy, obviously, he's not bad at cricket. I mean, like, there's lots of people who are saying, "Oh, this team's past it. None of them can play." It's like they're doing it. They are still doing good things. It might not be with the regularity of the past. I mean, like, I think that you can definitely make the argument that they are more inconsistent, but they are still, capable of some good moments. What's stunning to me is that they're all like massive boom or bust players. It's like, they're going to get 80 or they're going to get 0. Sam Curran, you can lump him in. Liam Livingston, you can lump him in with that. Chris Jordan, you never really know what you're going to get with any of these guys. And on this occasion, at least with the bat, it was the bad side of England. Is there anything they could have done to put up more of a fight, do you think, Max?
Just what in general, or with the bat, anything specifically? Or are you just talking the whole?
Well, I'd say with the bat, but if there's anything with the ball as well, you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think I almost don't. I think for me, I'm looking at this England side that had basically insurmountable is probably putting it a bit too far, but their task was quite Herculean for the players they've got in the situation they were in against the quality of bowling that India had, to be honest. I mean, yeah, mate, if there's anything, I'd say pick a different team would possibly be one thing they could have done, right? Like maybe the selection, you've got a situation where there's Jadeja and Akshar, 2 left-arm spinners. We've talked about England's heavy right-handed order, and the way they've got around that is putting Moeen Ali up to number 3 and having Sam Curran at 6. But Moeen Ali at 3, he's not really a number 3 in T20 cricket. That's not where you want him. Like you said, what's the expected outcome there? It's not. You can't be expecting Moeen Ali to come in at 3 and hit 70 or 40 and take England to a win. That's not really his game. If he comes in towards the end and biffs a few sixes and getting them over the line, that's possibly more the kind of thing you're looking at. So, I mean, it would have been a huge gamble, wouldn't it? So just at this point in the semi-final, be like, go on, Ben, throw Ben Duckett in and have a go. But you look at the pitch and the team that England are playing against, you're like, this is kind of ideal. Like there was a Pakistan T20 series not long ago where Ben Duckett was brought in and he was sweeping and looking good. And that's you wonder whether maybe England could have been a bit braver with selection, I guess, throughout, try a few different things, because they ended up stumbling, as they said, quite a lot on the Sky punditry, stumbling across this side and decided that this was England's best side because Sam Curran
It isn't their best side.
Batting lineup. And no, I agree. I don't think it is their best side. I mean, Will Jacks is a better option with the bat than probably half of what's out there, or probably 3/4 of what's out there, actually. I know he hasn't done it really in T20, but he's supremely talented. And yeah, I think you just saw this. It was quite, you've got, I mean, Salt, Bairstow, Livingston, Harry Brook. I think there's 4 guys in there who you're looking at. And am I looking at them as cricketers, and am I backing them to take down Akshar or Kuldeep? And the answer is no, right? And they basically had to do that to win this game. They had to take down at least one of those. They had to not let Bumrah go for 4.5 and over. And they didn't have the ability to do that. And that's probably part of the problem.
Yeah. There's a few people in our YouTube chat asking about why Moeen Ali didn't bowl more. Did they make a tactical error there, do you think, as well, not using the extra spinners or spinner that they had?
Probably because Rishabh Pant lasted 6 balls. Well, I suppose they might not have bowled at Rishabh Pant anyway, because he absolutely loves a bit of off spin, gobs it up, doesn't he? There wasn't, Shivam Dubé didn't come in until 7, bizarrely. So I think by the time it got to a point where there was a left-hander to bowl at, and I think we're looking at matchups here, he probably didn't fancy bowling the off spinner against this India lineup, and I can kind of understand that because even
I think that massively overrates some of the. I don't really think there's.
I wanted Moeen to bowl the 19th over. To be fair, I was all in for that.
Well, I think like I don't really see the expected outcome of a Moeen Ali over and the expected outcome of a Sam Curran over.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
that different at various stages in that game. I think the last 3 overs of the game, probably they got right. I think they went Jordan, Archer, Jordan. So I think that's I've not really got a problem with that. Jordan bowled a couple of absolute hit me balls to Hardik, and then actually bowled a third one, but Hardik smashed it straight at the fielder instead of into the ocean. But otherwise, Chris Jordan kind of bowled okay, and I know like people love to hate Chris Jordan, but I'm not sure he was the issue here. I think maybe a little bit earlier in the innings.
Did quite well.
Yeah. I think maybe a little bit earlier in the innings.
Yeah.
There was an opportunity to get at least a couple more overs of spin in, probably the Sam Curran overs, and they didn't. And I don't really know why that happened.
Well, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with the decision, but I'm just trying to pick out why. And I think the answer is probably being hung up.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that's probably a little bit paint by numbers, though. I think and if you were going to criticize England, if you were going to criticize the England management, they probably do that a lot. They latch on to some idea and then they just go with that idea for as long as possible. And not bowling an off spinner to 2 right-handers. I don't really understand what they thought would go wrong. Like, did they think that suddenly on this pitch that's spinning square, India would be coming down the pitch and belting him straight for 6s? Like, I don't think that was very likely. They'd have probably tried to hit him square, probably tried to sweep him a little bit. You can put some men out there, and you'd be quite unlucky if he went for more than 7, I think.
Yeah,
might even get a wicket if they do try and come down the pitch, which is what we saw when England batted, and Moeen himself Moeen ran himself out. It's a stumping for Rishabh Pant, but that was just comical cricket, really, wasn't it? We've got a super chat in. England have had a horrible 18 months. Some of them look well past their shelf lives, jaded and inconsistent. Buttler looks a sedate captain. What are our thoughts? That's from Silesh. And then we'll wrap up part 1 on this, Max. Like, what is it the end of the era for England? Should everyone retire? Should we shoot somebody?
Well, it's
burn down Lords.
It's a cyclical thing, isn't it? We go around a major ICC tournament. England have a stinker, and we all decide that we want to rip things up and start again. But actually, I think some very fair points Silas has made, to be honest. I'm looking at some of these players and thinking probably is time to move on. I mean, they'll probably move on themselves, right? Adil Rashid is, what, 35, 36? Yeah, Moeen Ali's same. And you're thinking they're probably going to call it a day themselves in not too long. Johnny Bairstow, I think, probably is past it. And I would rather have Will Jackson there. Or, there's quite a lot of talent with the bat coming through in England that should be given an opportunity. I think we could probably move on from Johnny Bairstow in the T20 game without worrying too much. And then that's half the team, basically. So, the other question about Buttler, wasn't it, as a captain? I think Butler's okay as a captain. I think he's fine. I don't think he's but I think there's a limit to how much difference a captain can make unless you're completely elite. We've spoken about that before. I don't think Jos Buttler as a captain is the underlying cause of the issue with this side. I just think that it is kind of the end of a cycle from this side. This is basically a team that won the T20 World Cup 3 years ago, which was coming towards the end of a peak cycle of England white ball cricket, 2019, which was basically what England have been aiming for in white ball cricket for ages. I would question how things have been since Matthew Mott took over. I've not seen many positive signs, to be honest, in the white ball game. It's all been a bit up and down. But I think that's kind of a symptom of where this England side are now compared to, I guess, what Matthew Mott was brought in to do, or what he was brought in on the back of doing, which was dominating women's cricket with an Australia side that were at the peak with fresh talent coming in who were as good or not, if not better than players that they were coming in for, in a situation where this team were streets ahead of everyone else for various reasons and just being a few years ahead in terms of professionalizing the game. Whereas he's coming into this England side who maybe were trying to look to replicate that kind of dominance, but were actually faced with a side that are on a downward trend when a lot of the rest of the world were, catching them up and overtaking them. So I think it's a symptom of where England are, and I think it's a few fresh faces, and I don't think it's, we need to rip it all up and start again. There's a lot of very good players in this side, but I think just a little bit of a rejig and a reset, a white ball reset, and England will be fine. Really, there are positives as well, right? Jofra Archer in this tournament has made it all the way through and been great. That's great news for England.
Yeah, I do think the only thing I'd say, I think you're right on most of that. I agree with most of that. The other thing is T20 cricket is extremely random. There are 40% at least of the universes we're sitting in here, that we could be in, Max, right now, are talking about an England win. It's not as big a gulf as people think. I know that India have battered England, but if you know anything about T20 cricket, you know that when you get two equal sides, that this sort of result does happen. I think there probably are some players that need to move on. I think the team would look better with Will Jackson in it. I think they probably need to find another batter, and I'm not absolutely sure it's with Adil Rashid yet, but what's that?
Heard, but Dom Sibley's been trying to reinvent himself as a T20 cricketer in the last few weeks.
Why not? Why not? He's got long levers, hasn't he?
He scored about 45 of 20 for Surrey the other day.
Bring Will Jackson, and we're in business. But no, there's a few guys, aren't there? Who's the other guy? Jamie Smith has been plundering the ball everywhere, and there's
the Surrey team. It's really good.
Guy who's gone bonkers. Ritish Patel, is that right?
Rishi Patel.
Yeah. So there's maybe pick a couple of them. There'll be a bit of a refresh. It's not the end of the world. There's another T20 World Cup coming up, and
in about 5 minutes, probably.
It's very possible to accidentally win one of these tournaments. Very, very possible to accidentally lose it. Max, we're going to take a break, then we're going to come back, and we shall talk about Afghanistan v South Africa. Possibly for actually longer than the game went on.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cricket Podcast. So we're going to be blitzing through Afghanistan v South Africa before we do a preview of India v South Africa in the T20 World Cup Final. The team that have been choking a lot recently, the greatest chokers of all time. I don't know how that would work as a marketing slogan, but that in my head is the narrative that will be playing out on Saturday afternoon. Max, Afghanistan v South Africa. This is what happened. Afghanistan, they decided to bat, and they, at this point in time, and probably for the rest of their lives, will regret that decision. Gurbaz, the entire Afghan batting unit, Gurbaz was out after 3 balls for 0 runs. Marco Jansen dismissing him. He had a good game, Marco Jansen. 3 for 16 from his spell. And, as we had said a number of times through this tournament, you get Gurbaz, you get Afghanistan. Didn't quite expect them to be all out for 56. There were a few things going on here. Some good bowling from South Africa, and one of the, potentially a pitch actually worse than that one in New York. So well done, the curator in Trinidad. You had a low bar and you managed to get under it. Shamsi, he picked up 3 from his 11 balls. And Amrik Norkia was virtually unhittable as well. He took 2 for 7 from 3 overs. There's not a single batter in the Afghan lineup that comes out of that with any credit, I'm afraid. Great tournament for Afghanistan, but it's ended pretty poorly. In response, South Africa... you're never going to lose this, but perhaps you could have won it in embarrassing fashion. The cock falls early, and then Hendricks and Markram are professional. They go about getting the runs required in just 9 overs to provide a healthy net run rate boost through to head of the final. Yeah, Max, not really sure what we learned from this, apart from Afghanistan had a big off day.
They did. I suppose what I would say is what we saw, what we said about this Afghanistan lineup is obviously, like you said, Gurbaz is massively key. And I think basically we saw them playing on a pitch that was horrific to bat on against a pace bowling lineup that was far too good for them. And they didn't have the ability to do anything about it. Basically, it was a case of you had an average. I don't know. Average might be overdoing it. Average to poor batting lineup without Gurbaz against one of the top bowling attacks in the competition on a pitch that massively favoured the bowling attack. They didn't really have much of a hope. If they'd played well, maybe they'd have got 100. Sitting ducks. They were sitting ducks, and they looked every bit like it. I mean, yeah, like I said, a 56 is below what you'd expect, obviously. But I honestly, if they'd played to their ability, maybe 100 would be the top end of what you'd be expecting. As soon as you saw what this pitch was doing, they didn't have a chance, I think, and that's a shame, really, for the game.
Yeah, no, it was. It was. I mean, a lot of the talk about this has been about how the pitch wasn't fit for a semi-final, and I think
it wasn't fit for much, really.
Yeah, it wasn't
fit for a Saturday afternoon at London Fields, or I don't like cricket club.
Yeah, no, it was a shocker. I don't think there's a way, like you say, that Afghanistan really had a chance of getting. 130 might have been a good score, and that factors in the outfield at least being kind of quick. You could hit the ball to the boundary when you did hit the ball, and that meant that there was some scoring available. But the pitch itself was about as bad as you'll see in world cricket. Like the ball going past people's nose and then go along the floor. I think they showed a side-on angle of the most extreme v the least extreme bounce, and there's genuinely a metre and a half
the height of
difference.
A human being in it.
Yeah, it's yeah, tough one. Great for South Africa though, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if they've completely thrown off the chokers tag, but there was certainly a mental block when it came to semi-finals for this team, and they must have been absolutely thrilled that they only had to get 56 runs to get through. Like it's actually impossible to choke, lads. Like I bet they're having a braai right now. Probably not. It would be 3 a.m. I hope they aren't. Otherwise, they're really not
good
taking this tournament
preparation for the
seriously.
final.
But after the game,
Although maybe they've been affected by one of the many plane delays that all the teams seem to have had in this tournament.
I bet they are. I bet they were happy, basically, Max, that
yeah, you couldn't have asked really for a better outcome, could you? For a semi-final, for a side that have struggled in semi-finals, that have got this choker tag against a team that, with all due respect to Afghanistan, are significant underdogs against them, and then to go out and, for that to happen, for Afghanistan to fall in a heap, 56. They've won easily. They've barely had to exert themselves. They'll be nice and fresh and in good spirits for the final. I think, if you're South Africa, you're looking at this and basically you couldn't have written a better outcome apart from maybe Afghanistan just actually not turning up at all and say, you know what, carry on.
What, just a complete buy. Yeah, maybe that would have been slightly better. I think the other thing for Afghanistan, not for Afghanistan, for South Africa, is that they have had a lot of probably quite mentally draining games through this tournament where they've just sneaked over the line. They've had to play that de facto quarter final, away from home, basically, well, obviously away from home, but like with a against the hosts with a big home support. That can take it out of you to get to the semi-final, which is the biggest game of the tournament. Even with like a pretty heavy favourites tag, like there's probably a little bit of weariness there, and to just flatten Afghanistan like this and really not have to exert yourself on an emotional level, I think probably benefits them in the longer term. I don't know if there's anything else to say, Max. To be honest,
it's a difficult one, really, isn't it? There's not a lot of analysis you can get out of games like this. It was quick, it was fast, and it was a drive.
Over soon. Yeah,
it was over soon, but. Yeah, we've said basically the two main things. The pitch was bad. Afghanistan couldn't bat on it. South Africa were good. Game over. Bring on the final.
Yes. Max, we're going to, for the purposes of advertising, have another really quick break. And then we're going to come back and we will talk about the final.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about the T20 World Cup Final between India and South Africa. We did have one question in, which was a good hypothetical while the break music was playing. Shri says, what do you think could have happened if South Africa batted first? I reckon, this is my theory, South Africa get about 135, and they're really nervous, and then they bowl Afghanistan out for 80, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's
I just don't think on this pitch, unless Gurbaz does something amazing, there's any hope for Afghanistan. I just think the South African seam attack is too good and the Afghan batting is too bad, specifically against pace and specifically in conditions where you don't exactly know what height the ball's going to come through. I don't think they had... I don't think they had a response in the locker that was going to get them through, and that's not so much an indictment on Afghanistan. That's an indictment on the pitch. Like you shouldn't be playing a game at this stage in a tournament or ever in cricket where one team can't win because of the surface. And we've said this mainly with respect to Test cricket and some of the pitches we've seen around the world over the last 5 years or since we were doing this podcast, that it is a problem if both teams turn up to play a game of cricket and we're advertising it as a contest, but actually only one team can win. Like that isn't, that you've turned the sport into wrestling at that point, haven't you? I don't think the curators were like cooking it in South Africa's favour, but the result of the pitch that they roll out is that Afghanistan go from a 20% chance of winning to a 5% chance of winning or something like that, and that's crap. But well done, South Africa. It's not their fault. Max, before we get going, just want to say Serious Cricket sponsors this podcast as well. If you head to the show notes, you can click our affiliate link. That will take you through to seriouscricket.co.uk, I believe. And Serious Cricket sell lots of top quality cricketing equipment. You can get your bat, gloves, pads, all the stuff that people wear to play cricket. We give them a big recommendation. If you like the podcast as well and you want to support us directly, you can go over to patreon.com/thecricketpod. We've got a big community of fans there talking about cricket 24/7. And we'd like you to join us if you would like to. I think that's $5 a month, £4, £7 Aussie dollars, and other currencies are available. And if you're watching on YouTube, do make sure you click like and subscribe. Keep the pod going there. Like if you can't be bothered or don't want to or can't afford to support us with money, support us with a click of your mouse or a touch of your finger. And subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening or watching. Max, what's going to happen on Saturday?
On Saturday, there's going to be a game of cricket between India and South Africa, and one of those teams is going to win. That's what's going to happen. I genuinely, I mean, obviously India are favourites, right? Like that's the reality of the situation. I think they are probably marginally the better side, but I can't call it really. I mean, I think it's going to depend a bit on, what the pitch plays like, obviously, because I mean, who even knows at this point in this tournament? It's been totally random. I mean, that pitch in Trinidad came out of nowhere, really. I mean, it's been all right, hasn't it? Up to now in this tournament,
acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, well, in the scheme of what we've witnessed, it's been passable, and that was an abomination basically. So it'll be interesting. But I'm just having a look at like some of the the recent innings in Barbados and Bridgetown where the final is, and I mean, you got Australia managed to put up 200 against England on it, and there's been sort of the odd 180, but I think you're looking like around. Actually, in 2022 there were a few 200s as well between England and West Indies. So I mean, you can bet on it basically. There are runs to be had, so that's good. I think for the final, that means it will be a slightly more even game. We're not looking at something that's going to be heavily skewed towards one side, but I think I will probably lean towards India, but it's just where my heart's going, because there's plenty of ways South Africa can win this game, right? They've got weapons in this side, and if you can score runs, then they've got players like Heinrich Klaassen, David Miller at the end of the innings, Quinton de Kock, who have had good tournaments and can really put some pressure on India. And I think it should be hopefully a really good game of cricket. If there's a bit of bounce in the wicket, then someone like Amrik Nortje can cause problems for some of the middle order. Like maybe you'll have to take a few wickets to get there, but Shivam Dubé and the short ball, Jadeja and just bowling fast at him. So there's ways. There's ways that South Africa can restrict India and put a good total on the board, but this India side is like good all the way through. But if I suppose it'll be all about, for me, I think, does it come down to, is it a pitch where India can get away with bowling 10 overs of spin? Because that's probably their best. It's probably their best lineup, isn't it? When they've got Akshar and Jadeja and Kuldeep in the side, because that's they've been causing problems, and it gives them a little bit more length in the batting lineup. Whereas when you bring in Siraj for Akshar or Jadeja, you've shortened the batting. It doesn't really work. Hardik Pandya, how much does he bowl? So I think that could be a big factor in this game, actually, whether India stick with this team and how much they can get away with bowling spin.
If you want to have a look at the betting market, Max,
yeah,
India are a 65% favourite.
I think that's mad.
To win this game.
For a one-off game.
Should be more. There should be more.
Should be more, 100%. For a one-off game of T20 cricket, I think that's crazy. So India are the better side, probably, marginally. But I mean, 65 is.
I don't see. I
You're
genuinely
telling me
don't
India
think.
you win, well, 2 out of 3 basically every time. That's quite
That's
heavy.
quite punchy. That is quite
Mm.
punchy. I don't think any team. I'm going to say this. I don't think any team with Heinrich Klaassen in is a 35% favourite to win any game. Like they're definitely more than that. Any team with like him by himself is 30% chance of winning a game. Like it's yeah, that's a tasty prediction. If you want to make a bad bet. Well, then maybe it won't be a bad bet. I mean, like, India are the favourites.
You might win,
so
yeah.
You probably will win money, but maybe not as much money as the actual odds should be. Yeah, I don't know. Right, let's have a look at this from the perspective of the two teams. How can South Africa win this? Well, I think there's you touched on a few of them. Like obviously, Heinrich Klaassen's going to loom large in a number of these discussions. I think de Kock, with a bit of experience in the Caribbean, will be quite important to them as well. I think, like with every team that plays India, you've got to not be out to Bumrah, and you've got to try and find a way to hit Arshdeep around. And I think de Kock's probably got that in his locker, to be honest. Like de Kock's a good player, and he'll be a really key wicket early on. And then with the ball, I really do rate this South Africa bowling lineup. And I know we did like the side-by-side comparison. I think we said we would rather have India, basically because India have got
Conditions.
Bumrah and the conditions. But I even think in the conditions, like South Africa's bowling attack is fine. Like there's not really any huge problems with it. Like in the conditions, it turns out Nortje is unplayable, for example.
Yeah, there's quite a big drop off from Bumrah to Arshdeep, isn't there? But the drop off from Nortje to Rabada to Janssen to even Bartman, not even
Bartman's not even
close.
play.
No, but Bartman's had a good
I mean, there is an element. South Africa, they've been playing Shamsi, haven't they? And I think that is their best team, but they feel, and I think history shows that Shamsi gets absolutely
India.
battered by India, and so maybe they'll go away from him. And I think in this particular scenario that would probably be a little bit of a mistake. But in essence, I think a bowling attack of Janssen, Maharaj, Rabada, Nortje, and Shamsi should be capable of limiting India to at least a par score. And sometimes we'll bowl India, like we'll take wickets quickly enough that India come in some way below that. And sometimes, on the flip side, Marco Janssen and Shamsi are going to get hit into the Caribbean Sea, and India are going to get loads and loads of runs more than they should have. But I do think South Africa are decent. I think you've got the de Kock and the Klaassen cards when it comes to batting. And I think all 5 of the bowlers can have a day or operate as a unit and help them to win. From an India point of view, there's probably a few more routes to victory.
Bumrah alone.
Well, you've got Bumrah. You've got Bumrah alone. You've got the batting team doing what they did to England and putting an above par score on the board and forcing players to do things that they don't want to do earlier than they should. Or earlier than they ideally would, and if you do just look at the batting side by side, there's not such a 2-card situation going on, if that makes sense. Like I do think South Africa are going to be quite reliant on de Kock doing something early and Klaassen doing something later. There's a lot of guys in that India team that can just do something, and it doesn't really matter from a timing point of view. And is that optimal for T20 cricket in most conditions? Maybe not, but in these conditions, it kind of is. Like there's at least 6 of them that could get 40 off 25 balls.
Yeah, and that'll be enough. Rather than
it could
consistently go for an entire innings and get you to 240. This is
that's exactly what I'm saying. Like I don't think they have the high of Heinrich Klaassen. And I think even surface level investigation of the numbers of Heinrich Klaassen will show you that they don't. But they don't need that because Surya Kumar Yadav isn't far behind, and Rohit Sharma isn't batting like someone who's far behind, and Rishabh Pant isn't very far behind. And Dubé, I know he's not done it yet, and if he bats at 7 for the rest of the game or gets dropped for Jaiswal, as some people have.
I mean, we didn't talk about that because it didn't matter in the end, but that was bonkers, wasn't it? Right.
But like there is certainly a 50 or 30 balls in Dubé's locker if they need it. Kohli's done nothing the entire tournament, but he's a player who we know has got 50 or 30 balls in his locker, and if 2 of them play an innings anything like that, that could be enough to win this game. So, I think that's all round quality. That's the flagship winning card for India and South Africa. They've got, they're going to need some big performances from the players that can kind of, do regularly play them. To be fair, it's really not uncommon for Anrik Nortje to take wickets or for Heinrich Klaasen to smash 70 like that. That does happen. Max, what percentage would you give it to India?
58. Ooh,
okay.
57.
I think that's about right. I think that's the ballpark. I'd go on the higher end. You could push it all the way out to 60, maybe. I think that might be a little extreme. But I do think there's a comfortable margin for India. Final question, or final couple of questions we probably should address, and people have been asking about this. Obviously, both teams are going to be under pressure. It's the battle of the chokers.
It's a good narrative. It's a good narrative for a final. I'm looking forward to that.
India have got the most impressive recent record, but South Africa, they invented the choke.
Yes.
Who is under more pressure here? Who's most likely to fold like a deck chair in the Caribbean sun?
I mean, I think if we're talking about pressure, surely pressure is on India. I mean, South Africa have never won a T20 final, have they? And they'll be going out for it. India, it's just there always feels like there's more pressure on India, doesn't there? Just because of the media, and there's been a lot of, obviously there's been all this talk about the timings of the games, which I mean, I think we won't get into it because I mean, really, from a financial point of view, it just makes sense, doesn't it, to have the games on when most of the people are going to be watching it. But with the semi-final venue and all of that, people. It might be quite an Anglo-centric media thing to be building it up, but it makes it feel like there's more pressure on India to win it, especially after the you got such an opportunity to turn around what happened in November in the One-Day World Cup. It feels like there's more on India for them to win it. So that's where I think more pressure is. But I mean. And obviously favourite as well. The favourite tags is big, like you said, in the Beckett markets. And I think in general, just across the cricketing sphere, people are expecting India to win this game, and the weight of expectations always adds pressure. Whereas South Africa are kind of, I mean, it's ridiculous to say they're on a hiding to nothing because they haven't lost a game in this entire tournament, and they're a fantastic cricketing side. But if you read a few articles or anything about this World Cup, then you would think that South Africa are some crazy underdog that are on a hiding to nothing to win this game. So they kind of can go into it with that mentality, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I don't really believe in pressure, so that's.
I know you don't.
Angle. Like I don't see that no one's ever been able to show that pressure's a thing in sport.
Apart from on the 19th of November.
No, but they just weren't very good. Like this is the thing.
Why not, Jack? Why not?
Just because a team plays badly doesn't mean they were under pressure.
No,
that's not an explanation. Like what happened in November was some genius decided that they'd play it on a used wicket because they had some suspicion that Jadeja would spin India to victory or some bullshit like that. It didn't work. Instead, KL Rahul dug in because he recognised the batting conditions were pretty bad and went too far because he's not that good. He's like not an elite level player. He's just a good player. Kohli got out. Kohli played on because the pitch was too slow because it was doctored. And then Travis Head, who is a good player. What are you telling me that Travis Head doesn't feel pressure? Like he felt pressure last week when he fucking got out, didn't he? Blew it for Australia. Like it doesn't. It's just pressure's this thing that you could just pull into an argument when you haven't actually got any real analysis is my take. Like, you can always, because you don't actually know, and because everybody has felt pressure, it's this really easy thing that you can just reflexively pull into a discussion on this kind of thing to explain something that you don't understand or that you can't be bothered to analyze properly. If India lose to South Africa, probably it will be because a South African has done something really good, and it won't be crazy if it happens. If Heinrich Klaasen hits 60 off 25 balls, it's not because India were under pressure. It's because Heinrich Klaasen is the best batter in the world, and you ran into him on a good day. If Heinrich Klaasen gets a 0, it's not because he felt the pressure. It's probably because he got a good ball early in his innings and he got out, and that happens in cricket. And I know that, that takes away some of the romanticism of cricket, and it demysticizes things a little bit. But that's what it is. This is these guys' job. It's not like when you play cricket in the back garden and you might think you're under pressure, or you might think you're making a stupid decision because of whatever reason, because your mate sledged you. Like, they're not playing on that level. Like, it's a different thing. It's so instinctive that there's probably not even time to really feel pressure. Doesn't mean people can't make bad decisions though. Like, that does happen, but people make bad decisions not under pressure as well. Max, I think that's enough cricket chat for this morning. We've got to go and do our day jobs. Thanks very much for listening, everyone. We will be back. I think it'll be Sunday morning. Will be the time for the podcast. So that's Sunday morning UK time. Like, it won't be straight after the game because the timings don't really work that well.
Yeah, and I'm going to be watching Green Day at Wembley anyway. So,
okay, well, enjoy.
I'm still 16.
So yeah, see everyone on Sunday. Bye bye.